Hello, everyone. It's Earth Day, so that's exciting. I know we can't really go outside too far and enjoy it, but some of you are. I think I heard or I read when I asked you guys what you enjoy doing. Some of you said you liked being outside, going for walks by nearby parks. So might be a good time to do that. It's supposed to be really nice today. So I will try and make this quick so that you are not just glued to your computer. Um, but just look into some things that you can do today that kind of just makes you appreciate this awesome planet that we're on. All right, let's get going. What am I yapping? So yesterday we started ecology. We looked at biotic and abiotic factors. Most of you knew what you were talking about when you compared biotic and abiotic, but I wanted to just clarify in case there was still some confusion. So in this video of the octopus, was really cool watching the octopus just travel from all these different pools. Um, Biotic factors being living things like the octopus and that little crab at the end, and abiotic factors being the water and the land and how they change. So when I asked how those abiotic and biotic factors influence each other or how are they were connected in some way, these were the answers I was really looking for. So, and there was more than just these, but I really just picked these two examples that um, two students had given me that were pretty good, and they got full credit. So one of them was in the octopus video. When the tide is low and the octopus needs food, it has the option to move on land to new areas looking for food. And notice I highlighted the biotic and abiotic factors. Second one is the octopus can be stuck on one side of the lake due to the tide, which is abiotic, but the biotic octopus itself can crawl across the rocks to reach the other side. So you could go on and talking about these videos and what was living, what was not living, how they interact, but I really just wanted a strong couple sentences or even just one sentence if it was really good at explaining how these two, biotic and abiotic, how these factors are connected to each other in that environment, in that video you saw. So let's move on from that. So we'll be talking about biotic interactions. Um, when I talked about ecology, we kind of split it up into two portions. How do how do organisms interact with each other, and how do they interact with the environment? So that interaction with each other is the biotic portion, living things interacting. There's 5 major ways that we're going to be talking about: predation, competition, parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. So in this picture, I really like it because there's a lot going on. So we have 2 wolves. One of them is radio collared. This actually was taking place in Yellowstone. They have a lot of their wolves are radio collared. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit more later. And then we have this mama bear with her 3 bear cubs, and looks like they're fighting over some sort of prey item, probably like an elk or something that is in the water. And then you have these crows too that are scavenging for the food. So everyone's trying to get at this food item. So what does predation actually mean? It's an interaction in which one organism, the predator, eats all of or part of the body of another organism called the prey, right? We're familiar with these terms. But what we're probably most familiar with is that picture that, I just showed you of like a carnivore eating another animal. That's typically what we think of when we think of predator or predation. But it's not always the case. So carnivores eat other animals, predators. Omnivores and herbivores eat plants. Omnivores can eat both plants and animals, but herbivores eat plants, and that's a type of predation too. So not something we always think about. But let's talk about like a specific example. So we have this lion. who is trying to eat this zebra. The zebra's running away. Lions are really fast, but they are like sprinters, whereas a lot of ungulates, like zebra or like horse, whatever, they have a lot of stamina. So they are like the long distance runners. They might not have a really fast sprint start like the lion, but they are going to last a long time and probably, or maybe not, we'll see, outrun the lion. So we have a predation example here. We also have this predation example of that, the same zebra eating plants and predating on plants. So just something to think about. So why is predation important in ecology? Why do we have to learn about it? Why do we care? Why isn't it just as simple as this thing eats another thing and that's great? Well, a couple different things. So the relationship between predator and prey influences the size of the populations of both predator and prey, and it affects where they live. So let's look at this graph here. We have, this is the population size of both a snowshoe hare and a lynx. If you're not familiar with lynx, lynx are kind of like bobcat, but they live up north, like maybe northern Minnesota, but mostly like Canada. And the snowshoe hare is that hare that actually will turn camouflage itself white in the wintertime and then lose its fur and it goes back to kind of like more of a brown to match this lynx, and then it's kind of summer environment, so it's not as white. Little background. So we have number of animals on this side. We have the time on here. So over time, both populations fluctuate. Are they influenced by each other? Heck yeah, they are. So if you look at here, let's just start at the peak of this blue part. So the lynx population is at, and this is in thousands, so it's just over like 50,000. The hare population is pretty low. Well, if there's not enough hares, rabbits, whatever you want to call them, the lynx will not have enough food to survive. I'm just going to take a little sidebar because my cat is right here, so you can see. This is my cat, Willie. He's kind of a pain in the butt. He's always wanting to step on my computer. So not today, buddy. Um, so anyway, we have the the lynx population is high, hare population is low. What happens? Well, lynx is probably going to die off because they don't have enough food to survive. So we see this sharp decline in the blue, which is the lynx. And then as a result, over time, we have a huge boom in hares because they don't have to deal with this predator. And that goes on, and it kind of turns into a cycle. Now, this doesn't always happen because you need to expect that these two animals are directly, their size, population size is directly related to each other, and that no other factor is influencing it. And that's not always the case. This hare could have other predators like coyotes and such that are maybe plentiful enough to make an effect in other locations. So take that into account too. Not everything happens in a perfect cycle like this to see what the relationship is. Just an example. So another example of predator and prey relationships and how they influence each other would be elk, specifically in Yellowstone. And we will get into that specifically more a little bit later, but it's a really cool story. So what we'll talk about right now is just how it affected where the elk lived. So in Yellowstone, a while ago, they actually removed wolves, and as a result, a lot of things changed, but most notably, the elk population increased, and they also stayed put where they were. They weren't forced to move because nothing was hunting them really. You maybe still have predation from coyotes, but I mean, look how big elk are. Coyote's not going to take down an adult elk, right? So the elk, all right, you want to look, the elk would stay where they are and they would be able to just relax, eat whatever they wanted. Primarily like young trees, like the leaves along this riverbank here. Loved it. So, um, so they were able to eat, and we'll talk about the effects a little bit later of that. When the wolves are introduced back years later, then the elk population decreased a little bit, but they also moved around the park. They didn't just stay put and eat all the plants in one spot. They were able to move, they had to move, and then they ate plants at each of these different locations. And it kind of balanced it out a little better. So, again, we'll talk about that a little more in detail later, but just to give you a little example here. So, another reason why predation is important in ecology is that it also affects adaptations. So, if you remember from our evolution unit, which seems like years and years ago, adaptations derive from natural selection most of the time. So, they're beneficial features that can be seen in the form of like the spider's ability to weave a web with sticky with the stickiness that is able to catch its prey and trap its prey. Or over time, the cheetah population that was really fast was able to survive because it was able to catch its prey, and then that those cheetahs were going to reproduce, pass on those genes, that genetic information that makes it so that their next generation is also really fast. So all of these things can be influenced by each other. Not always, but if you really start to study them, which is what ecology is about, you can start to make those connections. And adaptations aren't always seen in predators. They're also seen in prey items too. So up top here is poison ivy. It's poisonous to try to prevent anything from eating it because these plants want to also reproduce and thrive, and they want to grow. They don't want to be eaten and die, right? And I say want, of course, the plant doesn't really have like emotions and wants and, a favorite movie or anything. But over time, it has adaptations that are beneficial to its survival. And so this was one of them for poison ivy's ability to be poisonous. Same thing with this poison frog. And that's why they have these warning colors, because they're like, hey, buddy, don't even go there. I'm poisonous. Just find something else to eat. It's beneficial to be poisonous, so that's what the trait is going to pass on and be an adaptation. And so these are all influenced by what was eating them, where it was eating them, how they escaped, how they evaded. These are all interactions. Kind of cool. So I wanted this to be pretty brief because I really do want you guys to go outside if it's safe. And just even if you just sit out there and don't look at a screen, like easier said than done. But I just challenge you to just go outside. If you're not used to being off the screen in a while, you maybe like have to blink your eyes a couple times because I don't know like about you, but the screen is really messing with my eyes. And just listen to maybe there's some birds that should be out and about right now. Anyway, I can go on and on. I won't waste your time. But I just would say just take some time to go outside today, especially. So just to recap what we just talked about. So there's 5 major types of biotic interactions that we're going to talk about. Predation, competition, parasitism, mutualism, commensalism. We just talked about predation. So we determined that it's an interaction in which one organism, the predator, eats all of or part of the body of another organism, the prey. Why is predation important? Why do we study it? Why, we all know the basics behind it, but why is it important to study? Well, it influences the size of populations, both predators and prey. It affects where the organisms live, both predator and prey. and it affects adaptations of both predator and prey. So that's a lot. So, um, and we're starting small and we're going to get bigger. So it's really important that we really understand all of these parts because we're going to put them all together to make a big picture in the end. And this is just one of them. So I know a lot of you guys know all of these terms, but if you don't and you need some more resources, I will put some up for you. There are some videos I would like you to watch, and then there's an optional folder with just extra stuff in there too. So yeah, there won't be a lot of questions to answer today. Just want you guys to get outside and appreciate Earth Day. All right, have a good day.